So, the Indianapolis Colts, they're in a really tough spot. After a super quiet free agency, pretty much all the pressure is now piled onto the upcoming NFL draft. But here's the catch. Without a first-round pick, their entire plan to keep up in a division that's getting better by the minute, it all comes down to what they do on day 2.
All right, so here's the game plan for how we're going to break down this high-stakes situation for the Colts. We're going to look at the pressure that's building in the AFC South, talk about their kind of limited draft capital, dive deep into their 3 biggest needs, and then finally, try to figure out GM Chris Ballard's master plan.
Okay, let's kick things off with the big, flashing warning sign. The AFC South is getting tougher, and it's getting tougher fast. While the Colts' rivals have been out there making these huge, aggressive moves, Indy's offseason has really been defined more by who they've lost than by who they've gained.
And wow, just look at this table. It tells the whole story, doesn't it? On the left, the departures. You've got your leading tackler in the heart of your defense, Zaire Franklin, gone. Your number 1 wide receiver, Michael Pittman Jr., gone. Both of your starting defensive ends, Kwity Paye and Samson Ebukam, gone. Now look at the right. The additions are fine. They're solid depth guys. Akeem Davis-Gaither is a quality player, but he's not Zaire Franklin. You can just feel the roster getting a little hollow, especially on that defensive side.
So while the Colts were, being careful making these depth signings, rivals like the Texans and the Titans, they went on an absolute shopping spree. They weren't just filling holes, they were adding serious, top-of-the-market firepower.
And we're not talking about small moves here. Just look at the names flying into the division. The Texans go out and get a legitimate superstar number 1 receiver in Stephon Diggs and one of the best pass rushers in the league in Danielle Hunter. The Titans completely revamp their offense with Calvin Ridley and then trade for a true lockdown corner in L'Jarius Sneed. These are identity-changing moves, and you can't help but feel like the talent gap in the division is starting to widen.
So what does this all mean? While it basically splits the division right down the middle, most people who follow the league are looking at the AFC South in 2 distinct tiers now. You've got Tier 1, with the Jags and the super-aggressive Texans, who are seen as the favorites, and that leaves the Colts and the Titans down in Tier 2, kind of scrapping to keep up and prove they belong in that top-tier conversation.
And if you need one number to really drive this whole problem home, it's this one. 2-4. That was the Colts' record inside the AFC South last season. In a division that was already getting tougher, that's just not good enough. And with their rivals loading up like this, that record feels like a really scary warning for what's to come if they can't find some impact players of their own.
So how in the world do the Colts close this talent gap? Well, the draft, right? I mean, that's the lifeblood for building a roster in the NFL. But for Indianapolis, that's exactly where things get really, really complicated.
That first-round pick, it's the golden ticket in the NFL. It's that chance to grab a blue-chip prospect, a guy who can potentially change the direction of your franchise for the next 10 years.
And for the Colts, the number of those golden tickets they have is 0, a big, fat 0. In this scenario, that pick was shipped away in a big trade to get a star player. And while that's great, it means they're going to be sitting on their hands, watching from the sidelines on day 1 of the draft.
So their draft doesn't start on Thursday night with all the big names? Nope. It starts right here. Pick number 47. All of the pressure, all of the hope for a guy who can make a difference right away, all the weight of a quiet offseason and a division on the rise, it is all sitting right on this one single pick on day 2. They absolutely have to hit a home run here.
Okay, so with all that pressure loaded onto one pick, let's start digging into the actual needs. First up, that massive, gaping hole right in the middle of their defense. See, losing Zaire Franklin wasn't just losing a player. It was like they lost the heartbeat of that entire unit. They desperately need a new anchor.
Look, bringing in a guy like Akeem Davis-Gaither, that's a smart move. He's a pro. But let's be real, it doesn't fix the core issue that just killed this defense last season. They could not cover out of the linebacker spot. They were vulnerable. So they need a true 3-down guy who can be that long-term solution in the middle of the field.
So what kind of player could they go after at pick 47 to solve this? Well, the first profile is a linebacker who was, to put it lightly, a statistical monster in college. We're talking about a pure production machine.
I mean, just look at these numbers. They absolutely jump off the page. 255 tackles is just insane. 21.5 tackles for loss means he's constantly in the other team's backfield. But the thing that gets me is the turnovers. 5 picks and 10 forced fumbles. Those are game-changing, momentum-swinging plays, and that's exactly the kind of impact they're missing without Zaire Franklin.
But okay, that's one philosophy. What if you go a different route? What if you decide to prioritize
pure, raw, explosive athleticism over that proven college production. What if you bet on the athletic freak? Well, that brings us to another top prospect that's often linked to them.
So yeah, instead of the guy who just piled up stats, Anthony Hill Jr. is all about potential. He's the high ceiling pick. He's a more explosive athlete with that true sideline-to-sideline speed that coaches drool over. He could bring a dynamic, disruptive element that the Colts defense has been missing for a while. It's a really fascinating choice. Do you take the proven production, or do you swing for the fences on the higher athletic ceiling?
All right, let's flip over to the offensive side of the ball because, well, they have another massive production problem to solve there too. Trading Michael Pittman Jr. wasn't just about losing a player. They lost their undisputed number one receiver, their go-to guy, the quarterback's safety blanket. That's a huge void to fill.
And it's kind of the same story as the linebacker spot, right? Signing Nick Westbrook-Ikine is a solid professional move. He's competent. But does he scare defenses? Does he change how coordinators game plan for you? Not really. The Colts are desperate for another outside receiver with some size, a guy who can go up and win those 50-50 balls and just keep defenses from bracketing Alec Pierce or doubling Josh Downs in the slot all game long.
And this is why, if you're a Colts fan, you've probably seen this name 1,000 times in mock drafts. Elijah Sarratt. First off, he's a local kid from Indiana, which is a great story. But more importantly, his profile is just a perfect fit. He's got the size, and his playing style is constantly compared to what Michael Pittman Jr. did. And then you see it. 15 touchdown receptions. That is exactly the kind of big-bodied, red zone monster they need. The fit it's almost too perfect.
And that's the real beauty of grabbing a guy like this at pick 47. He wouldn't have to deal with all that pressure of being a day one, first-round pick savior. He could come in, learn the offense, and just grow into a bigger role alongside Pierce and Downs. He's that critical third piece that could really diversify the entire passing attack.
But here's the question that has haunted the Colts for what feels like years now. Even if you get new linebackers, even if you add new weapons, who is going to pressure the opposing quarterback? Because if you can't get to the other team's quarterback, none of the other stuff really matters. And that brings us to the final major area of need.
So the Colts already had a help-wanted sign-out for an elite edge rusher, and then this offseason happened, and they lost both of their starting defensive ends in Kwity Paye and Samson Ebukam. So even with some new guys in the building, that position feels dangerously incomplete. And this really is the key distinction here. Bringing in players like Arden Key and Michael Clemens, those are moves that raise the floor of that position group. You have capable bodies, you're not going to be a total disaster. But what those moves did not do was raise the ceiling. The Colts still don't have that one guy, that true quarterback hunter who can win one-on-one and generate pressure all by himself.
And that's where you start dreaming on a guy like R. Mason Thomas from Oklahoma. You see all those fun scouting words, right? Twitchy, speed to power, tenacity. What that really means is he's explosive and he just doesn't quit. And his value isn't just in the number of sacks he gets, it's the ripple effect a guy like that has. A consistent pass rush makes life so much easier for your cornerbacks and safeties and forces quarterbacks into making terrible decisions.
Okay, so we've looked at the individual puzzle pieces, the linebackers, the receivers, the edge rushers. Let's zoom out now and look at the whole picture and what this all means for GM Chris Ballard's master plan for this incredibly important draft.
And you know what's really, really interesting about all this? If you go read 10 different mock drafts from 10 different experts, while the names might be slightly different, they all point to the exact same areas of weakness: linebacker, wide receiver, and edge rusher. There is a crystal clear, undeniable consensus on what this team is missing.
And this quote right here, this is the whole philosophy in a nutshell. That quiet free agency, it wasn't about being passive. It was a calculated move to create flexibility. By signing depth pieces instead of huge, expensive stars, the front office has given themselves the freedom to truly take the best player available at one of these key spots when pick 47 is on the clock.
I mean, it is a huge, huge gamble. But you can kind of see the logic, can't you? Chris Ballard is trying to turn a massive disadvantage, not having a first-round pick, into a tactical advantage. Because they have these big needs at 3 different spots, they aren't forced to take, say, just a linebacker. They're betting that this flexibility will let them find the best value when it's their turn to pick.
And that leaves us with the million-dollar question, the one that's going to define the Colts' entire season. In a division that's getting more talented every single day, is this calculated risk going to pay off? Is having flexibility enough to land an impact player at pick 47? Or is their quiet offseason going to leave them a step behind everyone else?
So I really want to know what you think. What should the Colts do at pick 47? Should they go linebacker, receiver, or get that edge rusher? Drop your pick in the comments below. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive, do me a favor and subscribe to NFL Nexus and like this explainer. It really, really helps the channel grow.
And hey, one last thing before you go. A great way to support what we do here is by checking out our new NFL-themed coloring books. Seriously, they're perfect for fans of all ages, or maybe just as a good way to relax after a stressful draft day. You can scan the QR code right on your screen or find the link down in the description. Thanks for watching.